Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. This is Asim. Hope you enjoyed the previous video, and that was the first one in GraphQL Exploitation, where we talked about GraphQL versus REST, how data is being transferred between the modern applications, and what problem does GraphQL solve. Just a quick recap, GraphQL just optimizes and efficiently transfers data between website and the client. So that's why the communication is faster and there is low bandwidth requirement. So that was the key crux of GraphQL. In this video, we are going to talk about, we will continue with that part. In the previous part, I mentioned that we would be starting with damn vulnerable GraphQL application, which you can see on the screen as well. So today we are going to try to set this up. And after we have set this up, we will try to solve one or two scenarios for this. Parallelly, I will be continuing with the Android series. So a lot of people have been asking me, hey Asim, are you going to stop? Because it has been kind of a pattern that I add a new series and sometimes I forget to add videos in the previous series. So yeah, that's not going to happen, and I'm going to continue with this Android series as well. Let's give a layout of what's gonna happen today. So first we will be setting this up, damn vulnerable GraphQL application. I would show you what the application looks like, what are different functionalities into it. After that, we will try to take the first and the second scenario, which is figuring out the detecting GraphQL application, and then there's the fingerprinting part. So I'm going to use a third-party application. I'm going to show how that is to be set up. So yeah, that is there, and I would show the applications, how that application can be used to fingerprint the GraphQL applications. Yeah, so that's all. This is not going to be a long video, it's going to be a short one. So with that said, let's get started. So this is the page for damn vulnerable GraphQL application. I would add the link for this in the description of the video. It's made by Doyle Fari, and then there is another contributor, Connor McKinnon. Damn vulnerable GraphQL application is an intentionally vulnerable implementation of Facebook's GraphQL technology to learn and practice GraphQL security. It goes on the same lines as you would have seen damn vulnerable web application, which is DVGA, or there was damn vulnerable mobile application, insecure bank. All these kinds of applications, they are inherently buggy, they have security issues into them, and people can safely practice on that to find these bugs and learn how these bugs are found in real world applications. If you see table of content, there is this about DVGA. DVGA has numerous flaws such as injections, code executions, bypasses, denial of service, and more. See the full list under scenarios. These are scenarios. So this reconnaissance is the one that we're going to try today. It's not the same reconnaissance as we do in bug bounties, but kind of similar. Like this, first we need to figure out where is the GraphQL endpoint. After we have figured that out, we need to figure out what kind of web technology the GraphQL is using. Is it running on Python? Is it running on Node.js? What GraphQL library? Because there are a few security bugs that are library specific. A few libraries have their default set to different. So yeah, that's why it's important to fingerprint GraphQL. There are two operation modes, beginner and expert level modes. That would obviously change the difficulty. There are a lot of other scenarios. We will be covering these in later videos. For prerequisites, Python 3, Flask, these kinds of things. Even if you don't have Python, if you just have Docker onto your system, which is easily available on Windows as well, Linux and Mac, any operating system, you just need to have that and you're good to go. That's a very easy setup. So first you need to clone the repository, then you need to build a Docker image, and then there's this run command. So if you have SSH enabled in the git SSH thing, you can just copy this command and run. If not, which I assume a lot of people won't have that SSH key added onto the git repo. So just you need to copy this here, click on this, the link would be copied, and then I would show what else to do. If you don't have git as well, what you can do is you can just download the zip, unzip the file, go inside the folder, and just run this command, this docker build -t, and then after that has been built, you just need to run this. So the very bare essential that you need to have is Docker, and if you don't want to download all that, you can just do a Docker pull. So this is the easiest one, so I'm gonna just do this and put it here. So this is my folder. I'm just running docker pull dolevf /DVGA. So using the default tag latest. I usually avoid pulling images directly because it may be that the image is a bit outdated. So for that I would have preferred this method by building the image. So I would show both of these methods. So this is done. If you don't want to do this, just click on this, copy this link. Git clone, then paste this link. This would copy the application, the full folder here. Now damn vulnerable. Now we run this command docker build. So it would just build the latest image inside with all the files. So that would be faster. Okay. Now I assume that has been built. So just run this. This is the port 5000, so it would be running on port 5000. So let me just run this. If you have something else running on this, you can change the port. I think this is the port that you need to change for your machine. So let's say if you do it on port 8000, so internally the application is running on 5000 and externally on your machine it would be running on 8000. So let's see this. So here we have, that's all you need to do to set up DVGA. This is the main page. It's the same thing that was written here. And if header is not set, DVGA will run into easy mode. So by default it's running in the easy mode. Here you can create an issue. Let's say if you find some bug into the application itself, you can post it here, new issue. Then there's a mail thing that you can send mails to them. If you click on this, there's this mode, beginner or expert mode. Then this user, that there's this audit button. If you click on this audit, whatever the audit log activity is there. There's this solutions, and then there's this about thing. About is what is GraphQL and DVGA, the current version that's running. Rollback, if you have made any changes, it will just roll back to a default state. So that's safe to do. Let's see what are different applications. So there are this public paste. So paste is something like you just paste something, text or some data kind of thing. Like a public paste website that you would have known is pastebin.com. So it's a very popular website. Usually people paste, public paste others. People paste some text and send links and all those kinds of things. So you can see that there's this random things that's being posted here. So it's similar kind of thing. People are able to post, see there's this stays with this IP, with this user agent, they posted. These are used for cautioning someone to wait and not to make bad decisions or take reckless action. Let's say I want to do a create paste. New paste, public visibility, new message, submit. Paste was created successfully. Let's say new paste, new message, DVGA 172.17.01, and this is my machine. Just now I have pasted. There was one more option. Let's say new paste to public visibility. You can also change this visibility to private. Let's say new message to burn after read, and this was created successfully. Here is a paste link. So if I click on this, it would read and burn. Title new paste to, content new message to, burn true. So if you see the URL here, you see that there's this GraphQL endpoint and then there's this query. So we will be talking about this later, but for now we have found that there's another endpoint /GraphQL. You can also import paste from any website. Let's say pastebin.com. You can upload a paste, you can upload a file here. You go to the home page, you get the C, and then there's this public paste. So all these things are there. Now the very first thing, or the very first scenario that we saw, let's see, come back to this. Reconnaissance, discovering GraphQL. So there's this tool called GraphWoof. It's based to what WAFWoof is. WAFWoof, if you would have known, it's a tool to identify which WAF is running. So WAFWoof allows one to identify and fingerprint web application firewall. So this is one more thing that you can add into your arsenal. So GraphWoof is the GraphQL fingerprinting tool for GQL endpoints, It sends a mix of benign and malformed queries to determine the GraphQL engine running behind the scenes. GraphWoof will provide insights into what security defense technologies provided out of the box and whether they are on or off by default. Specially crafted queries cause different GraphQL server implementations to respond uniquely to queries, mutations, subscriptions. This makes it trivial to fingerprint the backend engine and distinguish between the various GraphQL implementation. So it's able to determine these kinds of GraphQL engines that's running on the backend, and on the basis of that, it also gives you a README kind of thing, a security doc for that particular application or that particular GraphQL engine as to what all things are enabled by default, what is a default bug that you can try. So these kinds of things. Installation, just git clone the repo and run this. So it's the same thing. If you don't have git, you can just download the zip. Since I have git, I would do this. Let me git clone. I'm just GraphQL. I think I already have GraphQL. Okay. So yeah, Python 3 main.py -h. So it shows the help page. Now what we want to do is target URL of the path. We want to detect where the GraphQL is. To exploit any GraphQL endpoint or fingerprint the GraphQL endpoint, you need to first figure out which is the GraphQL endpoint. What that means is that this particular web page, this public page, this is not a GraphQL endpoint, just an HTML page. Or if I just remove this, this is not a GraphQL endpoint, this is an HTML page. So first we need to figure out where GraphQL is running. On every server wherever GraphQL is running, there would be a dedicated endpoint. It happens in very few cases where there's not direct implementation, rather it goes through some endpoints, like let's say for example this public page. So maybe in the backend it's trying to query the GraphQL endpoint to get the data, but I mean that's not always the case, because then it defeats the purpose of client being able to create their own queries. So that's why it's usually that they have an endpoint, maybe /GraphQL or something like that, which is a bit obvious, because just exposing an endpoint, that doesn't mean that it's vulnerable. It's not a vulnerability by default. So let's see what are different options. -t target URL is this, and what else? We have to do the detect mode, right? So I think we have to add -d before this. So it has figured out found GraphQL at this endpoint. So you can also use GoBuster, but that would just give you the endpoint. It won't correctly identify whether it's a GraphQL endpoint or not. Here it is a bit obvious by looking that it's GraphQL. But what would actually happen is, let's say if it was not GraphQL, or let's say it was just a /API endpoint. So GoBuster would give you that, okay, that's a 200, it would give you a result as that is a valid endpoint, but it won't give you that that's a GraphQL endpoint. That's what GraphQL does. So here you can also give list all GraphQL technologies. This, if I remember correctly, you can output it to a file as well as CSV file. And what else? Yeah, I think that's also. Let's now try to fingerprint this. So if I do this, so now we have figured out what's the GraphQL endpoint, which is, let me just paste it here. GraphQL endpoint was this. So this is the GraphQL endpoint. Now I need to fingerprint what kind of GraphQL endpoint, what is the default configuration and all those kinds of things. So I'm adding -f flag and checking. We need to remove this -d because it has already detected what is the GraphQL endpoint. So fingerprinting, attempting to fingerprint, discovered GraphQL engine graphene. Then there's this let me copy this. Attack surface matrix. So the repo itself has all the attack surface things. Technology, Python, this is the home page, so it has given everything. Let me just copy this. So it's under GraphQL itself. The security features, field sessions are on, query depth limit no support, query cost analysis no support, automatic persisted queries no support, introspection enabled by default, debug mode not available, batch request off by default. So these are some of the security things which are available and which are not, like query cost analysis not available, there is no support. Query depth limit is no support. So basically an attacker can do as many depth queries as they want, and then that would lead to a DOS. Introspection is enabled by default, which is not a good thing because then it would give the whole schema. So any hidden field parameters that's not to be queried by the user, even those can be queried by the user and people can get some data out of that. So that is by default, that's not a good thing to do. So that's how we found that okay, these security features are enabled and what are not enabled. So let's try to recap what we did here. So first we went to this DVGA. We went and we downloaded this repo, and inside that we built this Docker build, and then we ran this command. Then there's an easier version if you just don't want to get clone and all those kinds of things. You can just run this Docker pull and run the same command here. That would enable this application running on port 5000, which we can access here localhost 5000. Then we went on and checked the different functionalities that it had, the beginner hardened version, the public private paste, creator paste, import, upload, all those kinds of things. The next thing we wanted to do was we wanted to start with this scenario. We wanted to figure out where GraphQL endpoint is. So we use this tool GraphQL. We git clone this. You can download the zip as well. Then we ran this command. The first command is to first detect where GraphQL exists, and this was the command python3 main.py -d-t, and this was the URL. It found that on /GraphQL, that's where GraphQL is residing. How I figured that -d is the endpoint is the command that I need to give. That was by running this -h, which is the default help option in almost all the applications. So there I found that -d is an option which helps in detection. So that is the detect mode. Once I figured this out, I just ran this command. Sorry, not this one. Yeah, python3 -f -t and this endpoint. So -f is for fingerprinting what kind of GraphQL endpoint is. It fingerprinted, attempting to fingerprint. It found that it was running graphene, and then we found the attack matrix, which is already given on the repo. Technologies Python, and this is the homepage of this particular graphene project. Then we went to this MD file and we found what are security features that are supported and which are not supported. So we completed these two in this particular video. In the coming videos, I would start with denial of service, batch query attack, and we will go on with this. So in the meanwhile, if you have skipped the previous video and you are facing some difficulty understanding what GraphQL is and what I am talking about, please go and check out the previous video. And there are some other links in every video. I'm adding a few resources. I'm also adding these on the Telegram channel. So if you're not there, please go and join the channel. The link would be in the description. I usually post any resources that I found onto that channel as well. So there's this GraphQL API security, and then there's this cheat sheet of OWASP. So I'll be posting these both links into the description of the video. So make sure you check that. If you like the video, press the like button, share it with as many folks as you want, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Have a nice day.